Welcome in, everyone. We are BTB Analytics, and we are back for another season of NFL football. It's a great time to be alive. Excited to be here with you guys. As always, it's Kevin. I'm here with Seth and Steve. Again, we are collectively BTB Analytics. Going to break down the NFL season previews, kind of go through a snapshot of where we think these teams are. Going to go through some rapid fire division takes, talk about win totals, talk about our data, talk about what the market's doing, as well as kind of do the same thing for some future plays to win Super Bowls, maybe some other derivative alt futures that we might talk about too. So again, excited to be with you guys. Seth, Steve, great time to be alive, like I said. So let's pull up and just jump right into it, man. Let's jump into our kind of a season preview, if you will, kind of what we think these teams are going to be based on some projections here. So want to remind everyone again, so this is our 2024 projected DVOA chart here. This and several other charts live on our website for free. You can absolutely see them anytime you want. Just go to our website at btbanalytics.com and you'll see lots of great info there for you. All right, I want to start with you, Steve. 2023 in the books now. There's some interesting, I think, expectations for this coming season for couple of different teams, but give me your visceral thoughts right off the cuff of where you think, or what you think heading into the season based on kind of our projected analyses and DVOA here.
Yeah, just to take it back a quick second. So if it's your first time looking at this, what are you looking at right now? So you're looking at our DVOA chart. So further to the right you are, the better you are on offense. Further to the top you are, better you are on defense. And so top right corner, top right quadrant is really where you want to be at. No surprise, you got teams like the Niners, the Chiefs, the Ravens. And so those are some of your heavy hitters in the quadrant of row, bottom left, where you don't want to be. Giants, Commanders, Panthers. I'm not going to say the other team to be on there because, that's my squad. Now, I don't think there's any surprises here. I think what you're looking at here is what everyone kind of expected. I am excited to see what the Texans do. I think they're going to be the big Cinderella story. I can't even call them an underdog because of what they did last year and how they re-up this year, with the additions on offense that they got. So I got no real hot takes, but I do have some great things I want to talk about once we get to the division breakdown sections, coming at you with a lot of takes for sure.
All right, Seth, how about you, man? Yeah, what do you think of kind of your high level thoughts going into the season?
Yeah, I mean, San Francisco's kind of shit to get off the pot. I think that they've been one of the best offensive and defensive DVOA teams for a couple of years now. So I think this has got to be the season that it either happens or it's not going to happen and fall apart. We're going to talk about a lot of the hype in Philly and contextualize some of that, but you can kind of see where they're at there. Good offense, bad defense. And then the one thing that stood out to me, especially going into the season with the big blockbuster Kirk Cousins signing, is look how low the Falcons are on defense. Now, we've seen them make a couple of moves here in the offseason, getting closer and closer to kickoff here, where we're like 2 weeks-ish out, and they've signed a couple of big names. But I'm really curious on if that's going to be enough to get that done on the defensive line. And then, like Steve said, we're going to talk about that other B team, the Bears. A lot of hype. I'm not sure if I'm buying it, though.
Ooh, yeah, that's a fascinating one to me. That I'm sure that'll spur some good conversation here as the show rolls on. I do want to go back to Steve real quick, and then we can dive into some division prep stuff. So, are you at least ready to admit that your rival team of the Bears, the Packers, and Jordan Love, they have arrived? Can you admit that now? Last year, we were on this train of Jordan Love hype, and there was one of us in particular who was not buying it. And, okay, here we are. Fast forward a few months. What say you?
No, they have not arrived. They had one decent season. They're a young team. Listen, the potential is there for sure. But let's not sit here and pretend that the same people weren't talking about Joe Flacco's the GOAT. Look at Joe Flacco coming back. And we saw what happened in the playoffs. So I'm not quite buying that. I never will buy it. But, taking the Bears fandom out of it, this team is definitely one to watch. I think they're going to be good in ways people don't expect. But I'm not ready to call Jordan Love the savior, the next Aaron Rodgers for the Green Bay Packers. Okay. But I'm a hater, though. So.
Yeah, I know. I had to get a little jab in there. Get your take on that real quick. All right, let's do it. We have 8 divisions to cover, guys, and we got a lot of data, a lot of information to discuss about them. So let's dive in. How about we start in the AFC, and let's go to the AFC West. Okay, AFC West here. So, what one team race, right, guys? Barring any freak show stuff happening, Seth. This is the Chiefs division to lose, of course.
Yeah, and the Chiefs are just such an interesting team from a betting standpoint. I mean, we're going to get a bunch of haters in here like, oh, Chiefs are so good, blah, blah, Patrick Mahomes so good. And that's true. I mean, this team has won 2 championships in a row. Patrick Mahomes is unstoppable, but that's really this playoffs. If you look at this team from a betting standpoint week to week in the middle of the season, the Chiefs can be a very variable team to bet on. So, yeah, I think it's a one-horse race for the Chiefs to win. The Broncos look like they have headwinds. Broncos with the new rookie, Bo Nix just named the starter. I don't know what that's going to look like. Chargers, it looks like Herbert might already be dealing with injury, so that's an issue. And then you have Minshew, which is maybe one of the biggest question marks I have. Is he the quarterback, though, that can get them through that, to rival the Chiefs? I don't know. But again, I'm not running to bet the Chiefs. This is, again, the team that they're not – every team in the NFL is beatable, and the Chiefs, I think, in the last couple of years have shown that until they get to the playoffs and Mahomes just does what he does. To me, even though there's some value here on the under, you can see the value on the over is just just very negative, so I wouldn't even go there. I think the answer to your question is yes, but it's a yes, but it's really difficult to want to bet them knowing how they perform in season and how tricky that can be.
Yeah. And Steve, to Seth's point, we don't have an official play for win totals in this division here, but yeah, do you agree with that take, or are you seeing, based on some of the slight edges we're showing for the other teams, that you like one, or that you're leaning one way or the other?
Yeah, no, I'm not betting against the Chiefs, and I don't disagree with what Seth said in terms of this team is definitely a more dangerous playoff team. But remember, last year they finished 11-6. They were 8-5 at one point, and at the danger of missing the playoffs. The Broncos were 1 game behind. The Raiders and the Chargers are both mathematically still alive, and people are saying, "Oh, this is the end." You had this Chiefs team that wasn't blowing teams out. They weren't explosive on offense like we've seen Mahomes-led teams. They were 25th in the league in EPA per attempt to wide receivers. Their average passing depth was like close to the batting 30th. So they weren't beating you down deep. Your most hype receiver, Kadarius Toney, couldn't catch a cold. And on top of that, by his own admission, was possibly a healthy scratch for the Super Bowl. So you saw Rashee Rice kind of get on towards the end of the season, having Xavier Worthy drafted from from Texas, and Hollywood Brown coming over. That definitely should help, but I can't see how they get worse. And I say all that to say this team they had a down year in terms of their explosiveness and the eye test, but you look at their EPA, they were right in that top right quadrant for most of the year. So I don't know how you bet against this team even when they look bad, they still get to 11 wins. Their strength of schedule, I think, is 12 right now. So I don't like it. I'm not a Chiefs fan, don't get me wrong, but after betting against Mahomes so many times and losing, I don't know if I can bet against them to win 12 games. So, but that's more see. No, go ahead.
I was just going to say, you said, I don't know how to bet against them. I can agree with that from a high level, but the reason I would say to not bet on them is price. Currently the market's pricing minus 250. We make this number plus 104. So we'll just call it 50% plus 100. I mean, you're getting quote unquote ripped off in my opinion.
Wait, I'm sorry. What the price for 11.5 wins?
No, for them to win the AFC West.
Oh, gotcha.
You're saying it's going to be, don't bet they're going to get it. The value you can see is to the under on the 11, but to win the division, we make this 50%, but the market is pricing, much, much higher.
Yep. Sure. Yeah, I can get behind that. I'm sorry. I was thinking at the 11.5 wins at minus 110. I think that's a fair number. But to your point about winning the division, yeah, I mean, you're going to pay the KC tax. And quite frankly, it's probably not worth it. I'm not betting this. Don't take this as financial advice. But I mean, the Raiders for me would be an interesting thing to look at with, so how they with Antonio Pierce coming in. But I'm with you, Seth. I'm not touching the division futures.
Yep. All right, let's stay in the West, though, but how about let's go to the NFC this time. All right, NFC West division outlook. This one's interesting to me. I'm going to need you guys to talk me off the ledge a little bit here, talk me out of my senses here. But again, maybe similar theme with the AFC West, although you kind of tease it a little bit, Seth. It's like, with the Niners, shit, get off the pot. Is this a one-horse race in the NFC West as far as you're concerned?
I mean, we have a lot of questions with who's going to actually be on that field. I mean, it's TikTok in a couple different ways. Are they going to plan? Are they going to sign Ayuk? Their tackle's actually holding out. He's not holding in. I mean, that's a pretty big deal. We're talking the best tackle probably in the NFL. So those are pretty big question marks to me. And so I think without having that, it's difficult to bet on them. But they've just been so dominant year in and year out. And I wanted to kind of come back to this full circle, because if we put ourselves in where we were a year ago, the narrative around the 49ers was this team has an unproven quarterback. Purdy was basically a fluke. We don't know who he is or what he is. But this is a team that was basically returning 100% of their production, returning their offensive coordinator, their head coach. And I know, Kevin, you were really keen on taking that value, and we found value on the 49ers and bet them at plus 1,000 because of that question mark that in our mind wasn't really that much of a question mark. I can understand people saying Purdy is a system quarterback and yada, 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 but the reality is the system hasn't changed, so why would he do worse? This year seems to be a new narrative, which is, well, Purdy's still not that good, and there's all these pieces, and how good can they be? And then, maybe their offense is good, but their defense is gonna take a step back this year. And maybe that's true. They have a couple key injuries at linebacker that happened late in the season. They did lose some pieces, but I think in this division, it's hard to not want to be a San Francisco backer, and we make this number massive: 81% to win, to make the playoff, and 61% to win the division. I mean, that is a pretty astounding number. This is better than a coin flip, and so I think the numbers would say it highly leans towards the 49ers.
Okay. Steve, what about the Rams, though? That's a team that we didn't spend a ton of time at the beginning talking about, but this to me, and I'm doing my best, guys, to not talk about the Cardinals because I'm a fan, but this to me, the team, the X factor of this division is probably the Rams more so than, as much as I'd like to believe, it's the Cardinals. So give me your take, give me your thoughts on there, because Aaron Donald retiring, Matthew Stafford another year older, and they are dealing with injuries in the preseason too. What are you expecting out of this squad?
Yeah, I got to be honest, not much, not enough to overtake San Francisco. And I'll give you a bone. So my take for the Rams is not even really what the Rams are doing. Yes, Puka Nacua came to the scene and he absolutely dominated. But I think your biggest shot is you're going to have to take down SF. And to Steph's point, we don't know what the defense is going to look like, but that entire D line for San Francisco: Chase Young, Eric Armstead, Javon Kinlaw, and then the linebacker Dre Greenlaw. I mean, the all-world linebacker. He's coming back from that Achilles tear. What does that look like on the defensive side of the ball? I mean, San Francisco was the number one successive offense in the league last year, and they were just absolutely insane. So the offense,
losing their offensive coordinator too.
Yeah, well,
coordinator,
yeah, and I feel more so the defensive coordinator. I think that whole Steve Wilkes firing was an absolute sham. That Shanahan's got to take blame for that, but. To your point, Kev, if you want to have the argument about opening a door to a dark horse, I think you have to look at the Rams as saying, hey, can they do like they did last year, get into these sort of offensive shootouts with these high-powered offenses and going up and just trying to outscore teams, right? Because you're not going to overtake San Francisco without that defense, really being what we've seen in years past. And I think you may have that chance this year. I mean, we had a bet last year, right? Was a Rams +8 when they played San Francisco? A game everyone thought that 7.5. Yeah. A game where everyone's like, oh man, SF is going to destroy them, blah, blah, blah. And the Rams held their own for most of that game. So I'm not a buyer of this, but I can definitely see an avenue where the Rams could be in contention. But if I'm being honest, man, this SF's to lose regardless of who's coming back on defense. That offense is just too damn good.
Yeah, I hear you, man. Yeah, LA kind of projected to be
as well. A lot of early injuries on offensive line for Rams.
No doubt.
I agree, though, Steve. Like, the offense there probably still, like, assuming, you get rid of injuries, like, it's probable that the Rams will have a potent offense. It's going to be, can they win through shootouts? The question I have for you guys is, what do we make of basically an enigma team in Seattle? We have this new reborn career in Geno Smith. We have a whole new coaching staff. We have one of the best wide receiver rooms in the NFL. They're a team that's not getting a lot of love. Our numbers kind of, I would say, indifferent. We make this team 30% to make the playoffs, 9.8% to win the NFC West. But this is a team that, if you are a Seattle backer, there's either going to be two categories I'm going to shout out right now. If you want to be a Seattle backer, go find some alternate overs and bet those. And if you want to be a Seattle hater, go find some alternate unders. This is a very difficult thing to model out. And the current price in the market is very difficult, in my opinion. And so you can get wild results. And Seattle is one of those teams that I think fits the bill, where you can get some pretty long odds, either going way over their total or way under their total. What are your guys' thoughts?
That's interesting. I'll just say there's been very little that I've picked up on, read, heard about regarding the Seahawks in general. There's been very eerily quiet. And to your point, like using the projected DVOA stuff, I mean, this is maybe just a middling kind of team, on paper, but yeah, if a couple bounces can go their way, if they are in a bunch of coin flip games, and they have some luck breaks, they have some injury breaks, whatever. Yeah, to your point, Seth, I could see there being this team being very surprising, either to the high end or to the low end.
Yeah, we talk about these tails, right? Like, how do you go into these things that could be, really long odds one way or the other? How do you really price that? And the reality is you can't price it very well, but no one can price it very well. So you can set yourself up for a lot of success here. And I'm with you, Seth. To be fair, I don't know what to think of this team. I mean, I don't want to compare seasons because it's not quite the same, right? All the changes, Mike McDonald in there right now, but this was a Seattle team that I didn't really have high expectations for last year that went 9-8. So, is anything possible? 100%. But I really don't have a great view on them. What I will say though is you're in a division where you play, sorry, Kev, Arizona twice, right? That helps. And I'm thinking about just from a defensive, especially a pass defensive standpoint, right? You've got the Broncos, who, historically we think of as great, but really haven't been that good defensively. We saw that last year, although they kind of turned out towards the end of the year. You've got the Lions, who are known for getting to shootouts. The Giants, again, the Cardinals twice, Green Bay. So there are definitely opportunities for Seattle to pick up easy wins and then win coin flip games. Rams twice. Can they pick off one against the Bills? Can they get one against the Dolphins? Who knows, right? So games you expect them to lose, but anything can happen. It's why we play it. So I'm with you. I think it's definitely something to look into, and I love that advice there about looking at the alternates and so you can pick up some real value.
Yeah, Kevin, you're saying, I've heard very little about this whole team, this whole roster, like nothing. So it's eerily quiet, and usually the eerily quiet teams, they either implode or explode.
Yeah, this is the first year of their new coach, right?
Yeah,
or was it last year?
Yeah, so a new coordinator, offensive, defensive.
Talk about coach. Just volatility, uncertainty. Yeah, to your point.
Sam Howell now is the backup
here, boys. Shout out Sam Howell. All right, enough NFC West. Let's flip flop, going back to the AFC. But how about we go to the AFC East this time? And in just my humble opinion, I think perhaps the most interesting division for my money. You obviously got Aaron Rodgers with the Jets coming back, the cream of the crop, if you will, for the moment with the Bills. And Miami is still out there doing their thing, probably going to be a very good regular season team. And, who knows what the hell is going to happen in the playoffs again. And then, you got the Patriots as a throw in here. So, Steve, let me punt it back to you real quick here. Not to tease too much, because I want to talk about the Jets with respect to the Super Bowl stuff, later on in the show. We are high on them, just to not bury the lead, a little bit, but from a very particular standpoint, but we're also short on them in another way. So let's talk through this and kind of see if we can work this out in real time. What's your take on the Jets?
Yeah, I'll just say you're high on them. No, I'm with you on this, man. It's tough because on one hand, yes, I truly believe the Jets have been overhyped, and really not that it's really Aaron Rodgers, right? I mean, this guy's 40, right? He's coming into it. Again, we joked earlier, we saw, Joe Flacco kind of have this resurgence and then dropped off, right? Who is the Aaron Rodgers that we're going to get, right? He played one snap, went down. So this is, a year without football, coming back into a very competitive AFC East, plus minus the Patriots. What I am interested, though, what kind of keeps me on the fence here is how the hell did this team win 7 games last year? I mean, this is a Jets team, and yes, the answer is a big part of that was their defense. But this is a Jets team that beat the Bills in Week 1. Now, granted, a lot of chaos there because that's when Rodgers went down. but they also absolutely whooped on the Texans, and right when CJ Stroud was doing this thing, as well as beat the Eagles early in the year before the Eagles really started to collapse. So this team is just someone that's built on good defense and mediocre offense, and if Aaron can be that difference, it's kind of hard for me to deny that 10 wins is in the realm of possibility. And if you look at the market wins valued right there, I mean, 10 wins puts you in the race for winning the AFC East. Do I think it's going to happen where my money's at? No, I'm definitely on the underside here. I think there's been overinflation here, but it is an interesting proposition.
Yeah. You said it best, Kevin. Like, this is a Jekyll and Hyde kind of situation. Like, the qualitative numbers really like the Jets. The quantitative numbers hate the Jets. And we're going to talk about it later, but this is kind of the first time we've been in this situation. But you're also right in that this is probably one of the most interesting divisions. We have Buffalo at 32% to win the division, Miami at 29.2, and then New York Jets at 35. So almost a 33% for each of those teams. That is really interesting. And it kind of anybody's, division to win. The one thing I do want to talk about is the Bills. I think we're seeing a narrative about a big drop off. And I don't know if I'm ready to be a seller of the Bills, especially with the changes in wide receiver. I think the way that they've drafted, the way they filled that out in free agency, I don't think we're going to have a lot of drop off from an efficiency standpoint from their passing game. The question will be how well do they use, condensed formations and tight ends. I think Dalton Kincaid can have a really big season, and that can be the saving grace. So Bills, I'm not ready to sell whatsoever, and the Jets are perplexing. And then Miami just needs to prove to me that their defense isn't going to take a big step back. That's, to me, what I'm looking for to want to see who's going to win this. And quite honestly, the Patriots are a sneaky bet for a lot of value. I know it's ugly as hell, but that 4.5 number is quite interesting. I'm hearing a lot of sharp, opinions that the Patriots are going to be dog shit. And I can say anecdotally, this is what our data shows. You can see that the simulations show quite a lot of value, assuming Jacoby Brissett starts on the over. But when we look at all of the situational stuff like offensive continuity at returning production for offensive and defensive coordinator, head coach, these types of things, it shows value on the under. So another situation where the kind of data disagree with one another, which is why we're not necessarily betting it, but still a really, really interesting team. I know they're not going to the playoffs. They're not going to have a good season, but is it crazy that the Patriots win 4 or 6 games? Whereas here, median is 7 games.
Right.
How big of a deal is it losing Bill Belichick, right? That's, to me, the $1 million question.
The rest of the league doesn't think it's that big of a deal. No one wanted to sign him, man, So
crazy. We should have
very interesting. Should have, yeah, he would have been good. But okay. All right. So wrap it just to put a bow on this. So we see a couple of edges here that we show using the simulations for the Patriots to the over and the Jets to the under. We haven't officially played or taken the New England.
No,
it's because overs.
It's so the simulation shows value to the over for New England, but this is one of the few situations where then the EPA based model where we quantify some of these other situations, it says that the value's on the under. So it's just kind of a stay away. The mixed signals there. And we're going to talk about the New York Jets bet here, I think, at the end. I don't know. I kind of want to bet the under. I'm not going to lie to you. I really do. I'm not a believer. I'm not a buyer here.
Okay. All right. Let's save it because let's get to that at the end, because we got a few more divisions still to run through. So, all right, we went to AFC East. Let's pop over to the NFC East this time. This is the one division. It's got that weird quirky stat, right? I think it's like the past 9 or 10 years in a row that there's been a different division winner, right? It's just been flip-flopping, right? No one's won this thing twice for at least the past, like I said, 8 or 9 years, I believe. So another team in it, the Eagles in particular, where, using one of our qualitative approaches that we'll talk about again, that we think there's some value on, but then also somewhat ironically, there's some value also on the under for the win totals here. So kind of a confounding / conflating analysis heading into the season, just in terms of futures and forward looking stuff here. But Seth, yeah, let me see if I can get you to break it down here. Do you think that trend is going to continue? Do you think there'll be another flip flop division winner? It was the Cowboys last year. Can the Eagles overtake them? Anyone else going to surprise?
Yeah, yeah, that can happen. I'm not as low on the Cowboys. You can see we're right there at 10.1 wins. DVOA is also at 10.1 wins. So I think it's going to be a two-headed, race here between the Eagles. We have a huge question mark with the Washington Commanders with a whole new coaching staff, rookie quarterback, another good team to play the extremes. This team could literally go 2 wins, 3 wins. They could go 10, 11 wins, right? When you're working with complete unknowns, it means no one knows, right? And so you can find some pretty big edges that way. I don't know if I want to be like a extreme over better for Washington Commanders, but hey, go Tigers. Giants, I think, are not going to be very competitive. I know you were kind of high on some of the futures markets for Malik Neighbors, but I'm not a Daniel Jones believer, and it looks like they're potentially imploding already. So that's concerning to me for the Giants. So I'm staying away there. The Eagles, we're going to talk about it. It's the same exact situation. The models say fade this team at all costs. The quote unquote expert opinions say this is a team that's going to take a big step forward. What do you do? I'm not really sure. Really, really interested to see what we're going to get out of Dak Prescott with a lot of pieces leaving his offensive line. Is this where Dak becomes better, or, does he just implode and, he finally they get rid of him?
Steve, tie it up for me. Yeah. Do you think because to Seth's point, the Cowboys have, they're the enigma every single year, in my opinion, for one reason or another. But I could see a possible implosion here for this team, and then this is a one horse race with the Eagles and all the. Even though despite some losses on the O line, they've made several upgrades. Kellen Moore going in as offensive coordinator there. I think I'm high on that idea or the prospect of his offense with those weapons. So. Are you in line with that? Do you agree? Do you think this is going to be the Cowboys' year, baby? It's our year.
I don't know why we keep doing this every year. We have and I say we as collective football fans. We know the circle of Cowboy life. They're going to look good on paper. They're going to have some great offensive games. They're going to start off hot. They're going to make the playoffs, and then they're going to choke. Rinse and repeat. We've been here before. So yeah, do I think can the Cowboys win the NFC East? Sure. I think my one argument against that, though, my one argument pro Eagles, even though we saw what happened, and to be fair, and I want to shout out Seth, because if you were the first one to really hop on this last year about the last year Eagles not having a good year before the season started, and a lot of that had to do with what was going on with the return in production, but also the strength of schedule. What did we see in this team and late one possession games kind of going their way? What we see that happen again this year or last year. And so my one argument though for Philly is you look at their strength of schedule, and we're going to talk about it a little bit later when we talk about Super Bowl futures, but they're pretty high up there in terms of having the easier schedule. So can that work in their favor? Can they bounce back? And is that part of the reason why the expectations are so high? I don't know. All I know is I'm not touching the Cowboys. Sorry, Cowboys. This is not your year. It never will be. Let's just move on.
Oh, dang.
Kev, you're muted. Kev, you're so stunned. You're so stunned about that.
God bless America. Yeah, there we go. All right, shout out Jera. Yeah. It's always going to be their year, and at the same time, it's never their year. So I love it. All right, let's head north. Why don't we over to the AFC and the AFC North in particular here? So this is second place on my list of most fascinating, interesting divisions. You got the return of Joe Burrow after his lengthy injury stint on the IR last year. Deshaun Watson remains interesting. I'll just say that. And then Lamar Jackson and the Ravens, him coming off an MVP year, and then all the hype coming in for them this year. So interesting. Seth, kick us off here with this one. So in some weird collective way, more or less, are you fading this whole division?
Yeah, I mean, basically it's a gauntlet. Yeah, you couldn't have said it better. I mean, it's you can see there's different levels of fade, but I mean, I think that this schedule, especially for the Steelers, where they have to play, each other twice is just when they're also competitive, also well coached. I mean, that's a tough schedule and a tough division. I think the biggest fade for us is the Cincinnati Bengals, which quite frankly, I don't love because I'm a Joe Burrow fan. I think when that offense is clicking, it is for sure one of the more efficient offenses. The question, though, becomes when you're modeling this stuff, is Joe Burrow injury prone? And do you need to factor in that? Because this guy has missed almost 2 whole seasons with 2 different injuries. So, is that bad luck or is that a trend? And I don't know the answer. And then who is this team defensively? Because they did lose a number of pieces on the defensive line and corner. And so even if they're really, really great offensively, can they actually fill the holes they need to defensively in this division where it's literally going to cannibalize each other? So this, AFC North to me is the Pac-12 of the NFL basically. And for me, it's a fade. It is one of our bets we actually have made. Cincinnati Bengals under 10.5. I can't remember the price. Do you guys remember the price that we laid? I can look it up.
Yeah, we got a plus 120. That was at DraftKings.
Plus 120. Yeah, so I think at that price, it's great. You could see it's screaming off the page. And this is another one that aligns with all of the different changes, new offensive coordinator, defensive coordinator stuff. Yeah, I mean, obviously Joe Burrow can bounce back and have an amazing year. Doesn't mean that it's not possible. It just means it's probably not going to happen, right? It's not probable.
Okay. Well, Steve, the king is in the north now. King Henry, that is. So, I mean, yeah, what do you think? I mean, I know we're technically not showing an edge one way or the other on the Ravens, but this has got to be theirs for the taking, no?
I don't know. I think common logic and common fandom says that, I mean, the Ravens running back room over the last 3 years has been a who's who of names and injuries. Like, it's just been kind of absurd, honestly. I mean, that's truly an embarrassment of riches of how many running backs they've gone through just in the last 2 seasons. But, I think for me, and I think that the chart says it here, there's really no edge, really one way or the other, a negative edge over one way, because I think that's a great number. What I'm looking at, though, is between the Browns and the Steelers. We've talked about this, if you guys followed us last year. The Browns were just a team that just wasted so much potential with Deshaun Watson really not doing what he had to do and then getting hurt, and that team just went downhill. But that defense was just so good for so long. And then you have the Steelers. I'm not convinced. I mean, everyone talked about, they scored a lot of points and, fire Matt Canada and this and that. I'm not convinced he was the problem. I think it's more systemic. And I know it's preseason. You don't put a lot of weight on that, but neither Fields nor Russ look great going into it. So I'll be very curious to see what that looks like. And I'm a big Justin Fields fan. I want him to succeed. But his problem is he holds on to the ball too long, which is why his sack rate last year was the highest in the league. And so is that going to translate into this Pittsburgh offense? And you look at that, I think one of the things I'm kind of looking at right now is you look at the Steelers schedule, the first 6-7 games, they've got the Falcons, the Broncos, the Chargers, Colts, Cowboys. They've got some winnable games there, but that back half is absolutely brutal. So I'm curious to see, can the Steelers get on a little bit of a hot start? Spoiler for future podcast or CEO, we have a take on the Falcons Steelers game. But you got Ravens, Browns, Bengals, Browns, Eagles, Ravens, Chiefs, Bengals to end the season. And assuming all those games matter, that's going to be a hell of a stretch. So I'd be curious to see if we can get some fade action on an inflated number going into the back half of the season for the Steelers.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, we talked about there being, potentially value in the tails for certain teams, one way or the other. This feels like a one direction only value. Like I cannot see how there's value to the over for the Steelers.
So what, like something extreme? You mean like 4 wins or something like that?
Yeah, in that neighborhood.
Now, in that same vein, though, I'm going to put something out there just for the true fandom folks. Remember, Mike Tomlin has not had a losing season. Every time we think he's going to have a losing season, somehow he pulls that stuff off. So if you're going to go tails, can you go over 8.5 for him to have a winning season?
Okay, we make the number to go over 8.5 plus 148. What do you want? Under 4.5, Kevin?
Under 5.5. I think 5 wins would be
under 5.
A disaster.
Plus 357.
Woo.
So yeah, think about it. I mean, Mike Tomlin is. Mike Tomlin's is him, but he's never had Fields or Russell Wilson as his quarterback. Just saying.
Can I give you a hot take here?
Yeah,
do it.
I don't think that necessarily either one of those quarterbacks are going to be the problem. I think it's going to be their offensive line, which is going to exacerbate both of those quarterbacks' problem. But this is actually maybe the opportunity he was looking for. But when you call out what I saw in those preseason games, it was the offensive line. I mean, Russ had less than a second to react. I mean, there's nothing he can do there. And we know that they are really trying to get Ayuk. I think the writing or listen to what they're showing us, right? They're not trying to, give Ayuk all this money and give up a bunch of draft capital. If they are not saying we need a goddamn wide receiver as soon as possible because our offensive line is trash and we need to get the ball out in, 1.5 seconds on every drop back. To me, that's, follow the money, so to speak, right? That's what to me they're showing. And I'm really concerned when you're talking about attrition, Steve, like later in that season, if you already have a horrible offensive line for your starting five, what happens when you go to that part of the schedule? And no doubt you're going to have to deal with injury. Does that team just slide? And maybe that supports your under 5.5 wins, Kevin.
Yeah, that's a great take.
I like what I'm hearing.
Yeah.
I'm taking notes. As we speak. All right, from one north to the other, though, let's flip flop. We did AFC North, and now let's pop over to the NFC North. And just as the resident Bears fan amongst us, I'm going to kick it off with you, Steve. So we are showing once again, like we did last year. Maybe, I don't know if you guys remember 2 years before that, but we showed value on the under for the Bears last year. And what do you know? Deja vu. Here we are again, showing some value to the under. So what do you know that data doesn't, Steve?
Yeah. So here's the thing, right? So you had this Bears team that goes 7-10 last year. You clean house on the coordinators. Shane Waldron's in on the offensive side. Eric Washington's in from the defensive side. What does that actually mean, though? You gave the keys to Caleb Williams. Obviously, he's the big talk of the town, being the number 1 overall pick. But last year, this Bears defense was absolutely abysmal. And that was before they got rid of Roquan Smith and Jonathan Quinn. Right. And so you saw this team sort of gel together. They were doing this no man's land for a long time. Then towards the end of the season, they gel together, kind of go on a mini run, get to 7 wins. What does that mean now? On the offensive side, completely revamped. Got Keenan Allen, got Roman Dunze, got DeAndre Swift in the backfield. You got Torrey Taylor, which shout out this dude, punter. This dude's a game changer from Iowa. And then you added Montez Sweat on the defensive line. So you got some big pieces here. Does that mean they're going to win the North? No, I'm not as high on this whole hype around him being the next savior in year 1. What I will say, though, and I'm going to answer this with a question to Seth. If you can sit there and say that Jaden Daniels can take a team to be either 2 wins or 10 wins, why can't Caleb do the same with arguably more?
He can. Okay. 100% he can.
That's all I wanted.
Yeah, no, that's fair. No, these bets have me shaking in my boots. I'm not overexposed here, but look, I see the same thing you're seeing. He looks crazy good. He looks promising. All of these things, but so many things have to go right. This bet is rooted in basically one type of logic, and that is in the NFL, the average bettor thinks things go right, and on reality in the NFL, the average outcome is things go wrong. People get injured. That left tackle gets injured, and then that means that the left guard does something. And then, Caleb Williams has taken 20 more sacks than he was supposed to, and that means he's throwing more interceptions. Like, there's a cascading effect here that is what is more normal in the NFL. And so I think that's really what this is picking up on. It's saying that you have this team. Who are they last year? And then what are the additions that you've made? And then the other big angle that that you're measuring here is, on average, what are you getting out of a rookie quarterback? And on average, you do not get generational talent from a rookie quarterback. It is insanely rare. And I just want to go back one season. If it is so easy to identify talent for quarterback, then why did the Carolina Panthers take Bryce Young and not CJ Stroud? They traded the whole world to your Bears, Steve, and they had months where they could decide who they were going to take. And if it's such an easy, no problem, no brainer, we can clearly identify talent, why did they end up with the wrong quarterback? because it's not only talent, it's all these other pieces like development, who and what they were having to do in college. And I think this is the other piece. I'm not saying Caleb Williams is not extremely efficient, but if you look at what he was asked to do at USC, he was creating a lot of plays that were improvised. He wasn't just creating he wasn't running an on time offense where he was getting it out on, at a certain angle at a certain time. It was a lot of improvisation in the Pac-12, which we know is notorious for bad defense. So these are all the things for me that lead towards the edge being on the under. But to your poignant question, can it happen? Yes, it can happen. Bears fans, it can happen. Will it happen? Probably not.
I will
at least
make
this
one
year.
quick point. Yeah, I'll make one quick point. To your argument. Going back last year, right? You talk about I think what you hear a lot on social media is like, oh, again, the Bears won 7 games last year, so and blah blah blah. The Bears had. They faced some of the easiest pass defenses last year, and they still barely mustered that. And I think the bigger conversation that no one's really talking about is it's not really how well the offense does, it's how well the defense does. Because if you're going to ask Caleb to make plays sporadically to win a game here or there, I think that's well within his capabilities. Yes, there will be some growing pains, but he can do that. If you're going to sit there and ask Caleb to come back from 2 scores down in the fourth quarter consistently throughout the season, no quarterback's been able to consistently do that. That's going to make him struggle more, and this team will lose more games. So it's really how good can the defense be? Because I don't think you can ask Caleb to get into shootouts every game as a rookie and expect success.
Can I have as one more point? I'm hearing a lot here on the one thing I'm hearing too is how easy their schedule is. I want to point out there is many ways to measure strength of schedule. I am more of a fan of using a DVOA projected of average opponent. Who is the average opponent you're going to go up against? There's a lot of other ways that you can look at strength of schedule. People are saying how easy that schedule is. It's a top, 5, maybe even top 3 easy schedule. If you look at a DVOA strength of schedule, they are in the middle of the pack. It's a much more difficult schedule from an average opponent week to week. So I think that's another huge angle. So, for us, positions under 8.5, it's gross, but I think we got plus 140. That's a huge number. It's since moved down, which is good to see. And then I've also went out on a further limb, and I've bet at minus 110 for this team to miss the playoffs. I just don't think, with the other teams, and we haven't talked a lot about them, but the Vikings and the Lions are going to be really good. And yes, the Packers are probably going to be good as well. And if it is those 2 teams at the top, can the Bears actually, even if they have a 9-win season, is that enough to make the playoffs? And I think the answer is no.
Yeah, Steve, for the record, I'm rooting for Caleb Williams. I hope he does well. But I just not this year, like you said. Maybe soon, but not this year. All right, let's head on over. We got 2 divisions left to cover, AFC, and let's go to the AFC South now. This one, again, I know we've been kind of getting a lot of people chirping at us about the Texans and the Colts, actually, interestingly enough. But the one thing about the Texans that I want to lead off with and then get your take, Steve, is for as big of a surprise this team was, and particularly CJ Stroud, to your point earlier, Seth, about identifying talent, like, he's 1 year in, he's already arrived and, dark horse MVP candidate, all this type of stuff. I was astounded to realize after the season, that they led the league in adjusted games lost to injury. They had an incredible amount of guys, particularly on the offensive line, that just missed time, either for an extended period or just, game 2 or here and there. So they missed a lot of guys last year. And theoretically, does that regress a little bit and kind of come back down to earth a little bit? How much better can this team be with the addition of guys like Stephon Diggs, Daniel Hunter? So I'm very fascinated to see what they do. But Steve, what are your thoughts on?
Yeah, I mean, this one, I'm going to have to recuse myself here, because this one I'm definitely taking an emotional angle to, which I know we're not supposed to do. The more you're trying to be a professional sports bettor. But I mean, I'm with you. You look at CJ Stroud, and for those, again, who followed us last year, one of the things we talk about with quarterbacks is their EPA versus volatility. And we have a nice little graph we put up there. And CJ Stroud was a very consistently productive quarterback. He was no Brock Purdy. Brock Purdy was in a league of his own. But for a rookie quarterback, there was literally nothing more you could ask for him. amid all the injuries around. I mean, remember we were talking going into the season their whole O-line was banged up. We thought it was going to be a bloodbath, right? Because they had
Yeah.
nobody to protect him, and look what he did. So you add these pieces there. Again, we talk about the Stephon Diggs and all of the folks coming into the backfield, and Nico Collins, Tank Dell being back. This team looks like they're going to be poised to succeed, especially in what I think is going to be a relatively weak AFC South. I'm not high on the Jags. I'm not high on the Titans. I think the Colts will be good. I think they'll be better than they were last year. Obviously, Richardson, playing this year. But this is the Texans' division to win. So why not go and kind of go up from there? I think 9.5 is a solid number. I wish it were closer to 8.5 or 9. But I can't find it in my heart to fade this team, which I know makes me a big pansy and, not really falling to my creed here, but that's kind of where I stand.
I think that I think the injury stuff last year is a really good data point of when we say on average things go wrong, right? That's a great example of that. So this is a reason why you might be high on the Texans is, well, everything went wrong last year and they still had some pretty good success. So maybe you believe with a little bit of luck in your sales that maybe you actually do take that step forward. I mean, CJ Stroud definitely showed that he is an anomaly. Now, the other side of that coin is regression, and teams do regress. We see it year in and year out. It does seem like this team is a little bit in a different situation. They have gotten more healthy and more weapons. So that does seem like an interesting 1-2 combination. But the problem, like you're saying, Steve, is there's so much hype around this team that everyone is just saying they're going to be good, even though they're not doing that fair analysis. It's like one of those like, oh, what side are the sharps on? What side are the squares on? It's like the one side where like everybody just agrees on the same side. This kind of feels like what the Houston Texans are to me. Like everybody feels like they have a lot of potential. They're probably going to be good, but at a 9.5 price, it's like it's just accurately priced. Like just accurately priced. The Colts are an interesting team in that division. What are we going to get out of Anthony Richardson? Can he stay healthy? He made like 6 games in. This is a team that did a lot with Minshew. So if you can turn that on, I think it can be a scary team. But this is another team that I would say is getting a lot of hype, and is the linchpin of that hype is everything will go well. No problems here. Nothing will happen. And I'm not sure if Anthony Richardson is the quarterback to be putting all that hope into. He's already one season in, injury prone. Is a pattern going to emerge? I don't know, just like you don't know, but I'm not exactly sold here that the Colts are going to be this playoff team, given that the Texans are in that division now, and they look a little bit more poised to continue on the upward climb, and the Colts may stagnate out. But again, who knows? We still have yet to see a large sample size with Anthony Richardson, so I'm excited to see what we're going to get there with the whole season, hopefully.
Yeah, I saw some wild stat. Like since his senior year of high school, Anthony Richardson has played like 16 games, or like 16 games over like 3 complete seasons. Something a ridiculous number. He's still basically he's very young. He's very inexperienced. So yeah, to your point, a lot of uncertainty again with another team, and their quarterback situation. So
I mean, that was his biggest knock out of Florida, right? That there wasn't enough data on him. It seemed like a reach at the time. So yeah,
true. All right, we got one left, boys. Let's hit it. We did them all. Last but not least, we have the NFC South. And the big news, big kind of offseason, hubbub around this division is obviously Kirk Cousins going to the Falcons. Let's just say it's not enough. Even since then, they've made a couple of moves that aren't technically reflected in here. But Seth, let me lead off with you here. I think this is, from a fan standpoint, from a competitive standpoint, going to be the worst division in football potentially. The Falcons might be the outlier, here with maybe being a little competitive. But yeah, what's your take on Kirko going to the Falcons and this division generally?
Yeah, I couldn't disagree more. I think this is actually a really interesting division. Kirk Cousins to the Falcons is interesting. You can see they're 24% on the under. This is a team we are actively fading. We took an under 9.5. I believe anybody remember the price? I think it was like a plus 120 or 130. But we're actively fading plus 120, under 9.5 for the Atlanta Falcons. there's just a lot going on with this team. Yes. Is there potential with Kirk Cousins? Yes, there is. We've already talked and highlighted with the DVOA landscape. You can see that defensively, this is maybe where their liability is. And quite frankly, are we going to see an early season healthy Kirk Cousins? That question is still looming. He is, less than a year off an Achilles. He had that injury much later in the season than Aaron Rodgers. So that's one thing to hone in on. There's a lot of interesting uncertainty that we're not even pricing in, but I just want to point out with the whole Michael Penix situation, which just adds uncertainty and confusion and makes me feel a little bit better that maybe how the new coaching staff is handling this is maybe not the best situation. But yeah, we're actively fading the Falcons. And then one of my favorite dark horse teams that I actually have a fair amount of positions, this is the opposite of the Chicago Bears, is the New Orleans Saints. This is a team we're quite high on. We have been over 7.5 minus 110. Love that bet. I've also went ahead and placed Saints to make the playoffs. You can currently get that in the market at about plus 100, or I'm sorry, plus 140. And we make that number about plus 100, basically a 50% chance for them to make the playoff. And if what you're saying is true, Kevin, this division or this conference, division is so easy, then this should be a really easy win for the Saints to dominate. We obviously have Tampa Bay with a new offensive coordinator kind of starting over yet again for Baker. It's still uncertain who the Carolina Panthers are going to be. And then to me, a lot of questions at quarterback for the Falcons. This could be the time for the Saints to make that extra climb. And we know they have the wide receivers to do it and the weapons to do it. And to me, I think this is a season that they're going to be poised to take a step.
Okay, let me just get one point in to contextualize. I want to clarify. I think this is it may be a competitive division between these guys. I think it's going to be the worst division in football. And I give some context to that just to say, if you sum up the market wins for this division, it's the lowest out of the 8. So I don't think the market isn't even very high on this division generally.
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, they got some bottom feeders. But we saw that last year. Everyone wanted to tell us how bad Tampa Bay was going to be, how bad they're going to be. I mean, this is a team that won the Super Bowl 2 seasons ago. And I understand you lose Tom Brady. That's a huge piece. But they had all of the other weapons. Now, who's Carolina going to be? I don't know. I mean, talk about quiet. When we were talking about Seattle, I've been trying to find video from their practices on not CJ Stroud, but Bryce Young throwing. I cannot find anything. They've scraped it from the internet. I'm curious to see what they're going to do with him, how he's getting the ball out. What does this look like? And I can't find anything, but yeah, I can find anything I want on whoever quarterback that's going to be horrible this year. So I don't know what's going on in Carolina. Are they going to take a step forward? Are they going to be shit again and keep that trend going? I don't know, but you're right, mate. You're right. Team total wise, this is maybe a bottom feeder division.
All right, Steve, take us home. What is it? I mean, what are we missing here?
Yeah, no, not much. I do agree with Seth's take here, and I'm actually pretty high on the Saints as well. And I think the one thing we haven't talked about is, again, the Saints defense, shoring up that defensive line. You've got Chase Young coming in. You've got Willie Gay backing them up behind that. So I think this is going to be a division where, I think they're going to bruise each other up, but the Saints are really poised to kind of emerge from the mud here, being South champions.
Okay. All right. Whew. Well, that was rapid fire-ish, I'll say. Kind of went off on a couple of tangents, but it's all good like we do. I want to let's tie this conversation off and discuss some of our futures, bets, plays, angles. Want to pull up a chart for you guys here, and I want to start with you, Seth. And I want to, if you could just kind of remind people, this method in particular, we don't really have a name for it other than the quote-unquote Warren Sharp method. But if you could just kind of break it down a little bit in what we're looking at and how we think about placing our Super Bowl futures bets, generally speaking.
Yeah. And before I do that, I just want to quickly go over the futures that we have placed, just so we're clear about it. We do have Atlanta under 9.5 plus 120 over at FanDuel. Chicago under 8.5 plus 140 at DraftKings. Boo, DraftKings. Cincinnati under 10.5 wins plus 120 DraftKings. Boo, DraftKings. Minnesota over 7.5 wins plus 124 FanDuel. New Orleans Saints over 7.5 wins minus 110 over at Bet Rivers. Those are the 5 that we have bet and we've put our money behind. Okay, back to the Warren Sharp method. We I don't know, stumbled. I'm not sure what we did, but we found an interesting take in Warren Sharp's book where he categorizes and ranks every position type in for each roster. So he ranks all the offensive lines, all the secondaries, all of the linebackers, all of the running backs. And we figured, oh, well, interesting. We can get an idea of what he thinks about overall rosters, which is a very, very, very subjective thing, right? PFF has grades, so everyone's got a version of this. And what we ended up figuring out is, okay, this can give us a little bit of an early signal on teams or rosters that are highly competitive relative to teams that are favored to win a lot of games or win the Super Bowl, i.e. the Chiefs. You can see that actually the Chiefs are the third best overall roster given each position, but actually the Eagles and the Jets have quote unquote better rosters on paper. Now, the paper has to translate into actual wins, but the reality here is this is a perfect situation for the Super Bowl market for you to buy low because you can get outsized odds. You can see that the Eagles are priced at 1,700 and the Jets at 2,000, but yet a team that technically has a worse roster and the Chiefs and the 49ers are priced at plus 600. So you're basically getting to buy a really good team with a lot of potential for a very cheap price. That's basically the theory.
Okay. And then on the flip side of that, Steve, can you tie this up for us too? Lots of discourse sometimes about whether futures bets generally are EV or not, and whether you should tie your money up and for that long of a period, etc. But so Seth kind of went through how we think about which team might or might not have value. Talk a little bit about the double day methodology for us, and for maybe someone who's not hearing it for the first time.
Yeah, so to answer the first question, can there be a lot of value, and should you type your money in futures? There can be. You can realize some incredible gains and incredible edges that you can't realize week to week. And so if you look at the Super Bowl kind of chart we have up there, you got these teams plus 2,200, plus 1,700, et cetera. So there's an opportunity to get real far here. And so how do you take advantage of that? What we call the double dip method, coined by one on Seth from BTB. And really what you're doing is you're taking the amount of money that you would want to spend on this ticket and breaking it up into at least two tickets, right? So let's say I want to put $100 on the Jets to win a Super Bowl at plus, what's that, 2,200. So $100 would win 2,200, right? So instead of having one ticket there, Jets will win the AFC East, and then you're getting to the playoffs and you're getting nervous. What you do is you make that instead into two $50 tickets, each worth $1,100. So what happens is once your bet starts to get closer and closer to realizing, or to closer to actually hitting, you're going to get an increase in your cash out value because the probability of your bet hitting has now gone dramatically up as the season goes on. So what you can do is cash out one ticket, cover the cost of both tickets plus profit on top of that, and still keep your upside intact by having that one ticket, in this case, worth $1,100 that you would otherwise have lost or cash out for a lot less.
Right. Okay, cool. So yeah, it's a method that's, again, not necessarily super quantitative in nature, but has nonetheless been something we've used and have profited from the past 3 years running.
3 years.
So maybe, 3 years running. So I don't know if we're due for some regression or what, but we're going to keep going until the wheels fall off, baby. So I want to bring back the chart up for just one quick other moment and get your guys' one more take here once more. So again, we talked about the Eagles and the Jets. These two teams, they're all ranked by their various positions, and there's a head coach ranking, and then strength of schedule is also incorporated in there to kind of get those composite rankings. So even though on paper we have one model that says, fade the Jets, fade the Eagles, for their win totals, there are some outsized odds relative to their talent and strength of schedule, frankly. So that's how we have approached this and how we've been taking it. But give me your visceral take on those two teams being the teams that we've identified this year as having the value, because you were kind of shaking your head earlier when both these teams
visceral take is disgusting. It's literally we've used this method. It's been really great. It's a super leading indicator that allows us to identify where teams may have some success early, and we can profit. We can buy low, basically. But we haven't run into the situation where we identify it this way, but then our models tell us to directly fade them. And so it's really conflicting. Part of me wants to just do both, buy low and sell high, and just, I don't know. I mean, maybe there's one anomaly where somehow they're both right, or one of them's maybe I'm wrong about the over under. They go over the under, but then they win the Super Bowl. Then, you know, then I make more money. But if they go under and I win that, but they obviously don't win the Super Bowl, then I just kind of break even. I mean, the reality is it's a good situation to identify value. We've used it before. We will use it again. This is the first time that it is given us conflicting data. I want to share something anecdotally, though. When we were at Bet Bash, we got a chance to meet Plus EV Analytics. Shout out. Super cool dude. We got to play blackjack with him, and he shared an anecdote that he was talking to somebody at Circa there at the sports book, and he said that the Jets are have the most bets for Salah to win the Coach of the Year and the most bets for first coach to be fired. So that was really interesting to me, because that meant to me exactly what we're seeing. When we talked to a bunch of people at Bet Bash, we found a lot of people that are really, really high on the Eagles, but our models completely do not like the Eagles or the Jets. And that to me was, when I heard that, I was like, that's exactly what we're hearing. And then that's exactly what we're seeing with our models, right? We would fade them. We would be the people saying Salah to be fired first, but then a bunch of the market is saying, no, this team is going to win the Super Bowl. So I think it's much more bifurcated than maybe we've ever seen.
Okay, fair enough. Steve, give me some closing thoughts on that. I personally am. I like the uncertainty. Kind of, the tails could rear itself in either way with the Jets. So I don't hate the play at all. And the Eagles, like I said, I mentioned earlier, anecdotally, I'm quite excited to see how they go. So I think the market just hopefully just mispriced that, and we got some good value on the Eagles. But what say you?
I really got no notes. I think the only thing I'm going to dabble around with, other than what we've already talked about, is looking at the Dolphins. I think they're going to win the AFC East, and the market has them one game behind the Bills, who are plus 1,700 to win the Super Bowl, compared to the Dolphins plus 2,200. So or 2,500, excuse me. So my thought process is double dip with the Dolphins once they win the AFC East. See what that ticket looks like. Maybe cash out first round and let the other one ride until AFC Championship or Super Bowl, and see what that looks like. I just think it's mispriced compared to what the market is saying for the win totals and the division winner. So other than that, I've got nothing.
Okay.
That's exactly right, Steve. We make the number plus 172. Looks like the best number you can get is plus 220 over at FanDuel. Shout out FanDuel. So that's actually quite a good bet for Miami to win the division.
Fins up, baby.
Fins way up.
All day, every day. All right, I think that's gonna do it for us here today. Hopefully, you guys got some good, valuable insights, information from our breakdowns here. I want to remind everyone again, a lot of the charts that we put up on the website here, particularly the DVOA stuff and others, are up on our website for free, btb-analytics.com. And if you guys could, please don't forget again to like and subscribe. Like the video, subscribe to the channel. It helps us out tremendously. So season is almost here, boys. I'm very excited for it. We will be back every single week throughout the season, trying to give you guys more data-driven breakdowns, analysis, and insights. So stay tuned for all that good stuff.
One other thing, the packages are live. You can sign up. All college and NFL weekly packages are up on the website. You can sign up now and get all the week one bets directly to your email. So if you're interested, and that's something that you want to use data-driven to make some bets in the NFL and college spread markets, BTB-analytics.com.